Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today we have to start this chapter number 12, which is about the synthesis of the process flow diagram from the generic block flow diagram. And in this chapter we will actually see that what are the different sources of information that we can consider while we are designing the reactors and the separators especially. Okay, so let us see what we have in this chapter. The full process flow diagram truly defines the process in a chemical engineering sense. Okay, so whenever you want to design any process, first of all you can make the block flow diagram, then you can have the process flow diagram. And this process flow diagram you have studied earlier also, that it can give you the true information about the process and how the raw materials they can be converted into the products, and what are the different units that are required in that process that can actually transform the reactants into the product. It is a starting point for the engineers to design components needed to translate the chemical engineer's vision to the reality. So in the process flow diagram, or when you are engineering any process, what is the main aim? To transform some raw materials into the products, and this is where the in chemical engineering vision lies. That you can think about some of the product and you can get that product from a group of feedstocks. Now here, when you're considering to generate some product from any process, then what are the different things that you need to consider? So we have seen certain unit processes that can be involved in transforming the reactants into the products, and how we can actually increase the purity of those products, and what are the different unit operations that can be a part of that process. So we know that what is the main process in the overall process flow diagram, that is a reactor. So you should need some information about the reactor engineering. Then you should have some information about the thermodynamics and how the different reactants they can interact with the other chemicals, and how the actual products can form. Here you should have some information about the thermodynamics. Then you can study about the process control. When you are having some chemical process or you have designed any process, then you have to operate that process without any problem. So in that case, you have to study about the controllers and different kinds of instruments that we can attach on those equipments to control the process. Then unit operation, then the transport. You have to study about the unit operations, in which you can study different types of compressors and pumps and these kinds of operations. And in the transport system, you have to see that how different raw materials are transported from one place to another, or in more detailed form, you have studied about the fluid dynamics in CT204, which consider about the transport phenomena. And similarly, you have studied about the mass transport, and you study that how the diffusion actually happens, and how those raw materials or the feedstock they can interact with one another. And after that, you should have an information about the material and the energy balances. So we have studied this thing. So when we are considering all of these five domains, we have to be very good in the reactor design, reactor feed preparation system. Then we have to consider the environmental issues, and we have to reduce the emissions and the pollutants. Then to optimize the process, we have to consider the recycle structure of the process, and we have studied this one in very much detail in the previous chapter number 2. Then we have to see what is a separation system. We will study the separation system in more detail in this chapter number 12. And separator feed system, we will also see this one. Okay, so once we have the information on these six main units, or these six main domains of the overall process, we can actually convert those raw materials into the products without having any pollutants in the process. And we have to also see the environmental aspects. Okay, and obviously the overall aim is to get the profit out of the process, and we have to increase our profit margins also. So all of these factors, it will contribute to the profit from the process. And also we have to consider the environmental aspects when we are designing any process. Now let's see this one, the broader context of the project: environmental concerns, customer expectations, return on the investment. So these are the three main things that we are interested in when we are designing any project. So the first thing, customer expectations. So we should be aware that what is the requirement of the customers, what is the purity of the product required, and such kind of information. Then we have to see what is the rate on investment, how much profit margins we are earning, and then we have to consider the environmental aspects of the concerns, how many carbon dioxide emissions are from the process, or what are the different kinds of pollutants we can have from the process, and how we can actually minimize that thing. Now, to consider these three aspects, we have to consider these three aspects in more details. What are those aspects? So, the first thing is that for running any of the process, we need to have some source of energy. So, what is that source of energy? Natural gas, coal, some renewable energy, and what kind of heat transfer medium is there? Okay, so heat transfer medium, we have to link it with the source of energy and how we are integrating that source of energy in our process. Then number of stages in the column, so it reflects the purification part here. So customer expectations, for example, you want to have some benzene with some specific purification. So we have to see that how many number of stages in the column is required to achieve that particular purity of the product. And then we have to consider what is the volume of the reactor. So volume of reactor, it actually reflects that how much amount of catalyst that you can use in any reactor, and also like what should be the production rate of the products from a particular reactor, and if there is any recycle stream into the process, then obviously it may increase the size of the reactors and the other downstream processes. Okay, so the volume of reactor is also one of the important parameter that we need to consider when we are designing any process. Now, consider as many alternatives as possible in earlier stages of the PFD. So when you're making any process flow diagram, what you should do, that you have to make as many alternatives that you can make. So why we make as many alternatives? So we want to avoid ourselves to get trapped into some or the suboptimal design. Okay, so we want to make some design that is highly optimized, and on provision of less amount of energy we can get more products. Okay, and now this one is simply a saying in the chemical engineering. It is a common trait to resist change more strongly as more effort is expended on a task, design, or a product. So this one is a human nature, that he do not want to put more effort because on any task or design or product. So because as a human we just resist any change. So this is simply a saying here. But what actually happens, we describe this as not wanting to abandon our investment in the activity. So what does it mean here? If we do not may put more efforts into designing more alternatives, we will just like waste our investment on the long run. Okay, so we have to make as many designs as possible to make our process more optimized and to get maximum profit margin from our process. Now we have to see this one. Interaction with other engineers and the scientists. So whenever you go to any process industry, you will see different interaction between different teams. So there could be a team of the process design engineer, and then he has to interact with the marketing engineer, and then you can also interact with the chemist in the plant. Now what should be the role of this process design engineer? So you might have some information on this one, process design engineer. So what is the main role of this one? That he has to make different process alternatives, and he can actually develop the pathways to make the product. So that is the main concern, that how different raw materials can be converted into products, and what are the different pathways that can be considered, and what could be the recycle structure of the process. So all of these factors will influence the product quality and the economics of the process. Then what could be the other roles of this process engineer? That he has to see that at which recycle structure, what could be the maximum purity of the products that can be achieved, and how much of the feedstock it is being wasted or being vented into the atmosphere. Then he has to control the quality of the products, and he has to, the main aim is to avoid the formation of the byproducts. So all of these roles lies in the domain of the process design engineer. Now let us see the role of this marketing engineer. So what is the role of this marketing engineer? That he has to find the customers that are willing to buy the product from any process, and he has to identify what is the market demand and what are the product specification requirement in the market. And also like who could be the marketing engineer? He should have some information about the chemical engineering, and like many of the chemical engineers, they enrolled in the marketing engineering domain because they have the better information on the process. Why? Because the chemical engineer, he can analyze that if we are increasing the purity of any product, then how it will impact the price of the product. Okay, so if the market demands for the higher product purity, then what could be the impact on the selling price? So the chemical engineer have that knowledge, and that's why sometimes the chemical engineers, they go into the marketing domain also to handle the pricing issues, and to provide the better information to the vendors, and to the market. Then we can have the chemist, and everybody know what is the role of the chemist. So for the chemist, mostly when wherever there are the batch operations, the chemistry is there. And most of the chemists, you can see in the laboratories, they would be conducting the experiments, or they would be they could be watching on the quality control or the effluent concentrations from the process, and they have to see what kind of pollutants that are going into the atmosphere, and how we can actually reduce those pollutants from the chemistry point of view. Now let's come to the reactor part, and let's see what kind of information that we should have on the reactor kinetics. So the reactor, we know that it is the main heart of the chemical engineering process. So the kinetics of the main reactions must be known. So whenever you are designing any process, so you should be aware of the reaction kinetics. So the rate of reaction, you should have an information on the rate of reaction as a function of temperature, pressure, and composition. So this information, it can be taken from the vendor that is designing a specific catalyst for any process, and he can give you that information, that what could be the rate of reaction for a specific temperature, pressure, and the composition of the feedstock. And then knowledge of the kinetics of unwanted side reactions is also crucial to the development of PFD structure or the topology. So whenever you're designing any reactor, you know that no reaction is 100% complete, and there could be some side reactions or the unwanted reactions. So we should be also aware of those unwanted side reactions kinetics, so we can actually try to minimize the formation of the byproducts. Knowledge of detailed reaction pathways, elementary reactions, and unstable reaction intermediates is not required. Okay, so we can have some information on the reaction pathways, but unstable reaction intermediates, we know that we do not have such kind of reactions in our system, so we have to minimize those reactions. For common homogeneous reactions, kinetics are available. So if you are dealing with some kind of homogeneous reaction that are occurring in the gas phase, or similarly maybe some reactions are occurring in the liquid phase, then the reaction kinetics are available, and somehow simple. Kinetics for catalyzed reactions are not readily available in the open literature. Now for the reactions that happen in the presence of catalyst, for those reactions, the data is not easily available into the literature, and sometimes you have to see the company files or the patent literature. But there also, it is very rare that you get the actual values for the rate constant and the pre-exponential values, and such kind of things. Okay, so how you can actually get that information? Key data to obtain from patent literature are inlet and outlet compositions, temperature, pressure, and the space-time. So these are the four things that you can get from any patent, that what could be the inlet and the outlet composition. So from this information, actually you can get the information about the conversion efficiency of any of the reactants into the products. Okay, so if you have that particular value for the inlet and the outlet composition, for a specific catalyst, you can directly use that value in the calculations. Then you can have the temperature and the pressure information. Also, you can have the information on the space time. Now, what is the space time here? That the reactor, it is a three-dimensional reactor. So what could be that volume of the reactor, and what is the resistance time of the reactants within that reactor? So that comes under the category of the space time. So you can get this kind of scattered information into the patents, and from that from this information you can actually get the value of the conversion percentage that you can use in your analysis. Okay. Now, there is a question here. Can preliminary PFD and cost analysis be done without reaction kinetics? So I can ask you this question, that can we calculate the cost of any process or the profit margin if we are not having the kinetic data? So the answer is yes, we can actually calculate the cost or the profitability margin. So we have studied one example in the chapter number 2, and there was no information on the kinetic data, but still we can see the reliability or the profit margins from any process. Now what we can do here, several process configurations. Now if you are designing any process, you can have different process configurations, and depending on the recycle structure and depending on the number of separators and the number of stages in the column that you want to have to increase the purity, right? So you can have such kind of you should have such kind of information, and then you can have an information about the temperature, pressure, flow rates. So the depending on all of these factors, the process configuration could change, and the recycle structure and the purification part or the separation section would slightly change, right? So you should have information on these parameters like temperature, pressure, flow rate, and the compositions. Then the cost of different assumed reaction rates. Now you can from any process, when you calculated the profit margins, what did you see there? That you have the main reaction and you have the information on the side reactions, right? So with that information on the main reaction and the side reactions, you can have an information on the products and the undesired products. Okay, so if you have that information, then you can actually estimate the value of the potential catalyst. Now how we can actually do this overall, if I summarize this one, you can have an information about the temperature, pressure, flow rates, and the composition, inlet compositions of the process. You can also have an outlet composition of the process, right? So you can ultimately have the conversion percentage of reactants into the products, right? And on the other hand, you can have an information about the number of reactions that are desired and undesired. So with all of this information, you can actually get the value for the potential catalyst. So which particular catalyst is reliable for your process, and what should be the quantity or the volume of that catalyst depending on the flow rates and the composition requirements. Okay, so from here you can also have an indication of the catalyst cost that could be used in the process. Okay, so the first part here, it can give you the journal profit margin analysis, and then when you can have that analysis, you can also estimate the cost of the particular catalyst for your process. Now here are some of the heuristics and what you can actually do. If doubling the reaction rate reduces the cost of manufacturing by $1 million per year, then catalysis research is warranted. Okay, so if you can increase the rate of reaction by changing some catalyst or by reducing the manufacturing cost by $1 million, then we can do some more research on the catalysis part. So we can actually improve the catalyst, so we can have more profit margin or we can save more money. The economic breakpoint is often a catalyst productivity of desired product of 0.10 kg product per kg catalyst per hour. Now this is a general convention that if you can get 0.10 kg of product when you are using 1 kg of catalyst per hour, then that is the economic breakpoint. And if you are not getting this desired product from 1 kg of the catalyst, then you have to change the catalyst and you have to do more research on the catalysis part. Now, another guide is that activation energies are usually between 40 and 200 kilojoules per mole. So we know that the main role of the catalyst is to reduce the activation energy of the reactants so they can easily transform into the product. So if the activation energy is between 40 to 200 kilojoules per mole for any catalyst, that is more desirable. And then the catalyst that can have the activation energy is more than this value. Okay. Now, information needs and sources, physical property data. Now, when you are making any process and you are trying to design any reactor, then you have to consider the physical property data. Now, what comes under the physical property data? That you are either dealing with the gases or the liquids, what are the boiling points of those liquids and the gases, what is an operating pressure, and what is basically the structure of the chemicals that can interact with one another. It can be what kind of bonds between those chemicals. Okay, so this all comes all under this physical property data information, or you can find this physical property data from your physical chemistry books. So this data is readily available on the internet also. Now, when you have this physical property data, then you can actually perform the material and the energy balance. How you can perform the material balance? You should have an information. Sometimes you need an information about the heat capacity data, or maybe you need some information about the viscosity or the density for the you can use like equations of state to estimate the value of the unknowns in between pressure, volume, and the temperature. So this is some kind of information that you should have while you're performing the material and the energy balance. Then you should also have an information on the sizing of the equipments. In the sizing of equipments, you should know what is the volume of the reactor, for example, if some kind of insulation is required on the piping systems or not, and what kind of distillation column you are using, if there are any kind of azeotrophs in the system or not, or what are the number of stages of the distillation column. So all of this information comes into the under the sizing of the equipment. Okay, now physical property data are easier to obtain or estimate than the kinetic data. Now physical property information, it is rarely available in the books and in the open literature. However, the kinetic data, which is more related with the catalyst, so it is some kind of confidential data that is not easily available online, and you have to see the company books, or you have to contact with the vendors. Material and the energy balance. So when you are performing the material and the energy balance, you should have an information about the heat capacity, CP values. You should also have the information on the density of the chemicals, and how the density changes with the change in the temperature, for example. Then you should have an information on the enthalpies of the mixture. So when different reactants mix, then what could be the enthalpy of the mixture, and what could be the heat of solution, heat of formation. So this kind of information you should have when you are performing the material and the energy balance calculations. Measured data are available in database of process simulators. If unavailable, can be estimated by group contribution techniques. Okay, now this physical property data, it is usually available in the literature, or you can have this kind of information from the process simulators like Aspen Plus and Aspen HYSYS. And if that information is not available, then you can use some other techniques, group contribution techniques, to get the value for those unknown physical properties. Okay, so parameter calculation is one of the technique that we can use in the process simulators to get the value for the unknown physical property. Okay. Now comes the part for the design of the heat exchanger. So when you're designing any heat exchanger, then you should have an information about the thermal conductivity data that mainly includes the heat transfer coefficients, and then you should have the information on the viscosity data, so you can study about the boundary layer formation and the boundary layer thickness that we studied in the CHA204 course already. Then when you're designing the separators, then you should have an information on the phase equilibrium data, and you should have an information on the equation of the states, equation activity coefficient models, or the combination of both, binary interaction parameters. So if some gases and liquids are interacting with one another, then what kind of parameters would be there and how you can get the values for those parameters. Okay, so this is some of the information that you need when you're designing any of the reactor. Now, when you're designing any reactor, then what you can actually do here, for a process with a reactor, synthesis of process flow diagram often begins with the reactor section. So when you're designing any of the process, the heart of any process is the reactor. Now, when designing any reactor, what could be the things that you should have in your mind? Reactor configuration. So what kind of reactor you want to use? Either it can be a plug flow reactor, or it can be a continuous stirred tank reactor, it can be an isothermal reactor, or it can be an adiabatic reactor. So you have to decide that which kind of reactor is suitable for your process. Then what are the base conditions? Now what is the inlet temperature, pressure, and composition of the feedstocks to that reactor? We should have that kind of information. And then preliminary base spec, for example, the conversion of the reactants into the product. So how much of the reactants can be converted into the products? For example, here 60%. So once you have these three informations, you can have the preliminary design of the reactor that can give you an information about the outlet composition, and if there is an endothermic or the exothermic reaction, if there is any change in the outlet temperature, and what should be the pressure that is more suitable to get the maximum value for the products. Okay, so with these three information, we can actually have an idea about the output from the reactor. Now, what are the important questions that you should consider when you're designing the reactor? In what phase does the reaction take place? So you have to consider that either it is a liquid based reaction or the gas phase reactions. What are the required temperature and the pressure ranges for the reactor? So what are the acceptable temperature and the pressure range to get the maximum conversion? So it depends on the vendor data that is supplying the catalyst. Is the reaction kinetically or equilibrium controlled? So you have to see either it is a kinetically controlled reaction, or you can have an equilibrium based controlled reactions. Does the reaction require a solid catalyst or the homogeneous? Okay, so you can see this one, different kinds of catalysts are in the market. Either it can be a solid or the solid catalyst or the liquid catalyst, or either you can have the homogeneous. For example, you are having some liquid based reaction and the catalyst is also the liquid phase, right? So that kind of process is a homogeneous catalysis. Okay, so you can study about those catalysts that can be suitable for your process. Is the main reaction exothermic or endothermic, and is a large amount of heat exchange is required? So you have to see the heat of reaction, either it can be an exothermic or an endothermic. What side reactions occur and what is the selectivity of the desired reaction? So you have to consider what kind of side reactions that can occur and what could be the selectivity of the desired reaction. What is the selectivity? Desired over undesired product. So you have to see what could be the selectivity of your process. What is the approximate single pass conversion? So it also depends on the reactor part. What is the single pass conversion and how it's different from the overall conversion? So that will specify the recycle structure of the process. For the gas phase oxidation, should the reactor feed the outside of the explosive limit? So when you are having some gas phase reactions, you have to consider what should be the heat of reaction and whether the inlet to the reactor should allow the explosive limits of the reactions or not. So what should be the inlet conditions to safely operate the reactor? Okay, so you have to consider that thing also. So this is all for the reactor part, and next time we will start with the separator part, and we will see some of the heuristics that can and that can help in designing the separation, and what are the main things that you have to consider when you're designing the separators.